This video will be comparing and contrasting how skills work in D&D 5e to how skills work in GURPS. This video will be very useful for you if you already know how D&D 5e works and you would like to learn how GURPS works. So let's start with D&D 5e. In D&D, you have ability scores. They're these smaller numbers. And these ability scores you determine at character creation by either rolling some dice or using the variant character creation rules where you get 27 points and you buy your ability scores with those points. So once you have your ability score determines your ability modifier, which is this bigger number. And the ability modifier is the important one. That's the one you use all the time. The ability score is not really used almost ever, except for determining encumbrance or max lift or something like that. Anyway, so let's get on to the skills. Here are the skills. There's a whole bunch of them. Each skill is tied to an ability. Let's take performance as an example. Performance is tied to charisma. So if I want to make a performance skill check, I roll 1d20 and I add my ability modifier that's linked to that skill, which in this case is 3. And if I'm proficient in that skill, I add my proficiency bonus, which Jaskier Dandelion, he is proficient in performance. So let's say Jaskier Dandelion wants to make a performance skill check. He rolls 1d20, say he gets a 10, add 3 plus 10, that's 13, add 2 plus 13, that's 15. Jaskier Dandelion got a 15 on his performance check skill roll. Whether or not that skill roll succeeded depends on the difficulty class, or DC, that the Dungeon Master, or DM, determined for the skill check. The DC will be a number between 1 and 20. The higher the number, the harder the skill check. The lower the number, the easier the skill check. So let's say the DM had a difficulty class of 10, in which case Jaskier Dandelion would have succeeded in his performance check because he got a 15, and 15 is equal to or greater than 10. Meet or beat the DC on your skill check roll and you succeed. Now let's compare that to GURPS. In GURPS, we don't have abilities. We have attributes, which are right here. There are 4 attributes. But now, if you look at the definition for an attribute in GURPS, and if you look at the definition for an ability in D&D, you will see that these definitions are the same. We just different words for the same concepts. In GURPS, we have 4 attributes: strength, dexterity, intelligence, and health. In D&D, we got our lovely, 6 attributes? Yeah. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, you'll notice in this attribute table here, there are only attribute scores. See, there's an attribute, there's a strength score of 10. There's a dexterity score of 11. And the attribute scores are what we use all the time in GURPS. They're not like in D&D where you make the attribute score and you never see it again. These are actually important now. Now there are attribute modifiers, or maybe they're called skill modifiers. Anyway, let's look at a skills list. I got the acting skill here. Right here, we have the skill level. You'll see it's IQ plus 1. The acting skill is tied to the intelligence attribute. Just like in D&D, GURPS has skills connected to attributes. So the modifier is not determined by my attribute score. The modifier is determined by the number of points I put into that skill during character creation or while leveling up my character in the game. So I put 4 points into my acting skill at character creation, and that means I get a +1 to the acting skill roll. The acting skill is, so there's, okay, we got to get to target numbers now. In D&D, we have a DC. In GURPS, we have a target number. The target number is the number you need to, well, meet or beat on your roll to succeed. So the target number is analogous to a difficulty class, except the difficulty class in D&D is determined by the DM. In GURPS, the target number is determined by your attribute and your skill level. So my target number here would be my intelligence, 13, plus 1, which would be 14. And right there, my target number 14 for acting skill checks. But that's just the base. The target number doesn't really change at DM discretion. It kind of does. There are modifiers. We have one modifier here, but there's more. The GM could make this harder by adding bonuses or penalties to this area here. So let's say I want to do some acting up on stage, but it's a tough crowd. Abnormally tough crowd. So the acting job's going to be harder. I would get possibly a -2 modifier to this acting roll. So that would be IQ of 13, plus 1 is 14, and then -2 is 12. So the target number would be 12. And I would have to roll 3d6 and get 12 or less on that roll to succeed in my acting skill. So in GURPS, you roll 3d6 and you have to roll at or under the target number. In D&D, you roll 1d20 and you have to roll at or higher than the DC, plus modifiers for both systems. And that is the basics of how skill checks work. Now, of course, the DM could say the acting gig is particularly easy because everyone's drunk and high and wants to have a good time. So you just got to go up there and do anything and it'll be fine. In which case, the DM would add bonuses, like say a +3. Say the GM's like, this acting gig's really easy, take a +3. In which case, I'd take my IQ of 13, plus 1 is 14, plus 3 is 17. Target number 17. I just need to roll 17 or less on my 3d6, and I succeed. And there you go. That is compare and contrast of GURPS and D&D for skill checks.